Hey guys, so I'm here with.
My name is Bob Vecchio. I'm the executive director for the Nassau Suffolk School Board Association. Thanks for having me.
So everyone who reached out to me asking about things with going on with school and relationships with school and business, this podcast is the listen that you should definitely listen to. So you're the director of Nassau Suffolk School
Yeah,
Boards,
the
right?
executive director for the Nassau Suffolk School Board Association. We represent 111 boards of education across Long Island, which represents 97% of the students attending public schools in Nassau and Suffolk County.
111.
111. There's 124 school districts, three BOCES, and one special act school district. So technically, there's 128 boards of education,
Okay.
and we represent 111 of them. Some of the smaller school districts out east or whatever
Right.
are not members. We have elementary school districts that have a central high school, so the elementary districts are members, but the high school board of education, which is a combo,
So
is
you're talking to a lot of people.
we're always talking to a lot of trustees. We're working closely with the superintendent associations of Nassau County and Suffolk County. We deal with educational partners like Scope Education Services. We work with
Senator,
the
right?
BOCES.
That's how I met you through election
we
speech.
we are constantly in communication with our elected officials in particular the state and federal level, but we also deal with the county legislators. But yeah, the state officials are critically important for us because most of the funding that comes to schools on Long Island comes from New York State. A smaller portion comes from the federal government, so we will deal with our congressional representatives and our U.S. senators as well. But we are in constant communication with, Senator Wyke, Senator Kevin Thomas, Senator Monica Martinez, Palumbo,
Right.
Senator Rhodes. We work with every elected official from the East End to the Queens border.
And I have to say, it's not surprising to me that you're the director because you're so into this, which is like why you and I hit it off our relationship, so
Yeah,
quickly.
my path to this is interesting. I spent 18 years on the Board of Education for the William Floyd School District out in the Mastics in Suffolk County. 15 years I was board president. So public education and being a public education advocate has always been a passion of mine. I got on the board in 2003. Then I was an executive committee member of the Nassau Suffolk School Board Association. I spent 32 years in healthcare accounting for drug and alcohol rehab based in West Hampton Beach, Seafield. That was my career for 32 years. And then this opportunity came along because the long-standing executive director was retiring, and they approached me about doing it. And,
Passing of the torch.
passing of the torch. And it was a big decision because, spending 32 years where I was, and I could have easily spent another 10 years there. But it gave me an opportunity to take what I did as an elected trustee for 18 years and take it to a whole different level for a second career. So I jumped at the opportunity to do it because, again, I care passionately about what public education can do for students, for children, for communities. Public education has the ability to change a person's life trajectory, right? You could be
100%.
coming out of an impoverished situation, impoverished family, and the power of public education, and I believe this is still true, could change your life trajectory.
One
so that
teacher
you can,
that really cares, right?
one teacher,
Yeah.
one person in the building. Sometimes it's not even a teacher. It could be
Secretary.
a security guard,
Yeah.
a secretary. It could be the lady that is serving you food. That one special connection. Like everybody always remembers somebody
Right.
that impacted them in public education, right?
Yeah.
Like to this day, I still remember my 6th grade teacher,
Yeah.
who, ironically enough, disciplined me for acting out on the playground, and I was embarrassed. And my mother wrote her a thank you letter. She literally, this is a true story.
You wish you still had parents writing thank you letters.
I'll tell you what, this is a true story, and I tell this story all the time. I'm dating myself. This is back in the 70s. I cursed on the playground. We were on the playground. I think we were playing kickball, and I cursed. It wasn't even a bad curse, right?
Shit.
Especially back then.
Yeah.
It was damn it, right? Damn it.
Damn.
She marched everybody in, and she said, "We're not going back outside until Bob Vecchio is disciplined for what he did on the playground." And she put soap in my mouth. Now think about
I was
that
just gonna
happening
ask
today.
that. In
Think
front
about
of
that
all your peers.
in front of my peers.
Yeah.
So now I go home and my buddy's on the bus. You could get her in trouble. Your parents could probably sue. Blah blah.
That's
blah,
when it
blah.
all ruined everything. When that mindset started.
Yeah. So now
Yeah.
I'm all fired up. I go home and I tell my mom, Mrs. Mafia. That was her name, by the way. True story. Mrs. Mafia. one F, not two.
Right.
Put soap in my mouth today. My mother's like, really? well, what happened? So I told her the story. She goes, okay, good. Guess what happened? I had a second bar of soap put in my mouth that day. And my mother wrote a thank you letter to Mrs. Maffia for doing that. And she framed that letter, and it hung on her classroom wall until retirement. And the first day of school, she would always, giving the instructions and the expectations of the class, she would always tell the story about the little boy that she put soap in her mouth.
Right.
Now, today, fast forward to today, if I was sitting on a board of education and a teacher did that, we'd be bringing him up on charges and removing him.
Forget it. No.
I'm the better for it. I never cursed on the playground again. Right. And that teacher wound up being one of my favorite teachers of all time. And here I am, 56 years old, and I still remember that incident, and I think back on it fondly. I wasn't traumatized. So not suggesting that's the way to go about things, but just a little life story about how public education, your memories last with you for a lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
I mean, our coaches were always hard on us, and, they cursed, we cursed, it's just.
I remember my wrestling coach kicking our butts in
it made you a better person.
Absolutely.
Now it's kind of like
a little character development.
There's a slippery slope. There was always a slippery slope. Now there's a really slippery slope.
Yeah, you have to be there's a fine line to everything, and not saying that discipline. We've learned more about behavior modification and everything else like that. And if you go too soft, too hard, you got to find that right position in the middle. But still, overall, Long Island is really fortunate because overall we have some of the best school systems in the country. Wow. They're constantly rated as far as the best of the best. We have certainly, when you look at New York State, we outperform and we're known as some of the high performing.
Is that rated by test results?
It's rated by a couple of different things. Like, so the ratings that they do when they say best high schools in the country, it's not necessarily tests. It's schools that offer international baccalaureate programs or advanced placement and how many kids are participating in other school offerings.
Right.
We've had Blue Ribbon Commission schools, which is a federal government recognition. So there's a whole host of measures, not just necessarily tests, that sit there and analyze school districts and how they stack up against one another.
Right.
And consistently, we have some of the best schools in the country and certainly some of the best schools in the state. We also have school communities that have historically have had challenges, but even those school systems over the last several years have shown great progress and great improvement for their students and their school communities. So we're very, very fortunate here on Long Island with the school systems that we have. And that's because of the dedication of board members who are elected. They're unpaid volunteers. Most people don't realize this, but school board trustees do not get paid. It actually costs you money because you have to go to every bake sale. You have to go to every PTA event and things like that. And, of course, you have to run every 3 years.
Now,
so
what does a board consist of?
So a board member, it's really easy.
This way people listening to kind of, if they want to be on a board, they can run.
Sure. The only requirement is that you're a resident of the community and you're 18 years or older.
Oh, wow.
That's the only two qualifications.
Wow.
Which is good and bad, right?
Right.
But it's really easy if you want to run for your school board. You go to the district, you pick up a petition. The number of required signatures is a formula based on the total number of voters from the previous year. You get the required number of signatures, and then boom, you're on the ballot. And then if your community elects you, you're an elected board trustee. Over in West Islip last year, we had a
kid, right?
18-year-old.
Yeah, I heard that story.
He was still a student, Quentin Bedell, who, 18 years old. He did a write-in campaign because he didn't get his petitions in on time, so he wasn't officially on the ballot. He did a write-in campaign and got elected.
Awesome.
And this is a very talented kid, young entrepreneur, has a big landscaping business, Eagle Scout, still a student, and now he's a board trustee at 18 years old.
Awesome.
And he's not the only one that did that. Our current New York State Comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, made his claim to fame when he was 18 in Mineola, got elected to the school board in Mineola, and that began his political career.
Wow.
And now he's the state comptroller for New York State and has been for a long time. So school board service is something truly unique, truly special, and, made me a better person, made me a better manager and leader because you learn so much from being involved in these.
So if someone's looking to get into the political realm, that would be a good stepping stone, you would say?
Could be. Some people will say, if you want to get into the political realm, don't be a school board trustee because you're always raising taxes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, but there are plenty of school board trustees that are in politics right now. and started their political career in school board service. Plenty of folks, and
well, they're in positions where they could help the voice of a school board be heard, kind of like
right. And you are your community's public school advocate when you get elected. You are the fiduciary for your school district, so you oversee the finances, and you oversee the direction that the district is going. You don't micromanage the district, right? You hire people to micromanage, like your superintendent of schools, and you oversee the policies, you oversee the finances, and you make sure that you bring your value set to the table saying, when I became board president of my district, my main goal was, okay, we want to increase our graduation rates. And we were laser focused on that, and that's what we did. So school board service is something truly unique.
So the school board picks a superintendent?
School board hires the superintendent.
They're in charge of hiring.
Okay. That is.
So the school board has some rank, as far as
the school board collectively, right? Mm-hmm. As an individual board member, you don't have any power. It's like any corporate body, right?
Yep. Checks and balances.
A board of directors. Just because you're a board of directors doesn't give you power over that corporate entity, but it's the collective board, right? When there's a quorum of the board, that is the power of the district, and they're the ones that set policy. They're the ones that hire a superintendent. They're the ones that evaluate the superintendent. So the most important thing that a board does, in addition to so many other things that they do, is the hiring and evaluation of their superintendent of schools, because the superintendent is the CEO, and the board is the board of directors. So the board plays a vital role into the direction of a district. If you have a high-functioning board, you're more than likely going to have a high-functioning district. If you have a dysfunctional board, your district is going to suffer at the hands of that board.
Now, I wanted to circle back to what you were talking about before, as far as how they judge a school district, and how we have the best school districts in the country. As you're saying, that's amazing. Now, is that graded on how many kids go into college?
So there's a couple of measures. Graduation rates is a big thing. What happens after graduation is a different story.
And graduating, I believe, is very important. At least high school.
Graduation is critically important.
Yes.
For me, I was always of the mindset, and when you and I met a while ago, I think I said this to you. For me, the role of a board of education, the role of the public school system, or any school system for that matter, is to prepare our students for what I like to call the 3 E's. When you cross that stage and you get that diploma, you should be ready for one or a combination of 3 E's. You are ready to enroll in higher education, whether it be community college, 2-year or 4-year school, ready to be employed in the trades and have the skill set necessary, and I know that's a passion of yours, or be ready to be an entrepreneur too, right? Or be eligible and ready to enlist into our nation's military.
Awesome.
If schools have done one of those 3 E's or a combination of those 3 E's, we've done our job by any measure, right? Because you are ready to take your learning to a higher level. Good for you, and then that'll lead to a different type of career. You're ready to be employed into the trades, and schools have been expanding CTE, career tech ed programs, at a great rate over at least the last decade that I'm intimately aware of, or into our nation's military. And I got to tell you, here's an interesting statistic that most people don't know. 70% of today's high school seniors are not eligible to enlist into the military.
Why is that?
Variety of things: mental health issues, criminal backgrounds, physical fitness. There's a whole host of things that, or they can't pass what they call the ASVAB, which is an aptitude test that the military gives.
Do they still give that test in schools for physical fitness?
Yes, they do.
Okay. I remember doing that in elementary and high school.
That's a state and federal requirement.
Okay.
So 70% of today's high school seniors, if they wanted to enlist, are not eligible. Of the remaining 30% that are eligible, less than 1% enlist every year. And less than 1% of our nation serve our country in uniform. And those numbers have come down, and it's become a real security issue.
Wow.
That recruitment is way down. So the military is really doing some massive outreach to improve the recruitment numbers, because it is a security issue.
Do you think, not to cut you off, do you think that if there was a class that discussed this more in the younger 9th, 10th grade level, do you think that would be better off for the high schools?
So I will tell you that even more than a class, there are several school districts across Long Island. There's somewhere between 6 and 8 that I'm aware of in particular. They have what they call a JROTC program.
Okay.
Now, colleges have ROTC programs, not every college. This is a JROTC. So it's kind of like an introduction to ROTC, and it's also an introduction into if you have aspirations to the military, what it's about. And it's a curriculum, it's a class, and kids are active in it. I'm intimately aware of it because my son was involved in RJROTC. And there's different branches of service, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, they all have these JROTC programs. And schools across Long Island, long-standing programs. It's nothing new. And there's no requirement that if you do JROTC in school that you have to sign up for the military or do any military service. But it's run like a military program. The kids get uniforms and they learn about, you know, different aspects of military code as well as other curriculum things. But it plants the seed. If this is something that you're interested in, it plants the seed. Then it also opens up opportunities that, you know, there's every branch of service has these scholarship programs. The Army, it's called a Minuteman Scholarship Program. So you could become eligible and apply for these scholarship programs. And there have been several students across Long Island that have been recipients of the Army, Navy, and Marine scholarships. And they go to college free.
Wow.
Free, totally paid for by the military. And they have to be part of the ROTC program while they're in college. And then when they come out, their commitment is 8 years of service to the military. And they're entering the military as an officer, not just an enlisted. So there's a whole host of opportunities. But even enlisting into the military, there are so many benefits to that now. And the recruiters have been doing a great job of promoting this. And most schools across Long Island have the recruiters come in and talk to kids about the opportunities, particularly at the high school level, saying, hey, did you think about this as a career path? Because it is a career path.
Now, do they talk about, because our whole world is driven by money, and I think more so money now because you have YouTubers making millions of dollars or whatever. If you told these kids not only what's available in the military, but what could be a nice hiring thing to have in your resume for a police officer, you know, fireman, you know, having some sort of military background, you know, private contractor, stuff like that.
Medical,
like,
right?
Medical.
You could go and become, you know, a medic.
Do they talk about salaries and stuff like that?
They talk about the opportunities for salaries. They talk about how you can earn credits that if you want to take college afterwards. Or you could transfer that benefit onto your children, right? So let's say the GI Bill, the way the GI Bill was first put out is very different today than it was. You know, people who serve in the military, they get these GI benefits, not only just for them, but they could transfer the benefits onto their kids. So I know plenty of people that went into the military, they didn't use the GI benefits for themselves when they got out, but now their kids are going to college off of the benefits that they earned because they served. That's great. So these are things that have been going on in schools for a long time, are continually exposed to our kids as opportunities if they so choose. And, you know, listen, all kids have to do or parents have to do is, you know, if you talk to a recruiter, they'll certainly guide you along the way. But even the guidance counselors in schools will guide you along the way. But schools have also been doing the same thing with regards to other career paths, right? And there's been a lot of conversation lately by the state education department about changing graduation standards. You've seen this in the news a lot. We're going to change the graduation standards because in New York State, no matter what you do, you have to pass 5 Regents exams to get a diploma in New York State. And is that a really good indicator that you could be successful in life after high school? The answer is no. Right? You know, it was the baseline to say, okay, every school is going to do this.
That was
for a certain mold, and that was a design that had been put in place way back when. Has been a legacy program, continued on, but the state is now looking at, well, there are multiple pathways to a graduation, and that's exactly how they phrase it. You may have a student who is really, really talented in a skill set, say carpentry, electrical work, and an electrician or an engineer, or something else that you might not need college when you graduate. Automotive skill set.
Well, you will still be furthering your education. That's what I think people lack. They think you're just going to go in this and you're going to do it. No, you still have to further your education in those fields. And
absolutely, because they've become very high tech in nature too, right?
Yeah.
I know you're in plumbing and heating. Plumbing and heating today is a lot different than it was 25 years ago, 100%. Right? Due to technologies. Electricians. Look at what electricians are doing nowadays with just the technology that's in place.
Yeah.
You have to have that skill set. So what schools have been doing, and this has been going on for a while, and this is one of the things why I'm glad to have the opportunity to sit here and speak to you, is they have been shifting the mindset of trying to push everybody to higher education, and that's the be-all, end-all, to say, no, we have opportunities for workforce development.
Right.
And there's huge workforce development needs here on Long Island.
Absolutely.
Right? My association, works very closely with the Long Island Association, the largest business association on Long Island. And some of our schools have formed partnerships with industry. On Long Island, there's a huge manufacturing industry. Long Island is home to the second largest defense subcontracting business in the country.
Well, Curtis Wright is
Curtis Wright. People think because Grumman left, that whole industry went away. Far from the truth. The manufacturing industry, I heard a statistic not too long ago that the average salary in the manufacturing industry on Long Island is about $83,000 a year. And when you're getting into advanced manufacturing and aerospace manufacturing, it's even higher. There are huge opportunities here on Long Island, but the business community has been saying, we need the workforce.
Right.
The workforce has been leaving.
Right.
So schools, public schools, K through 12, have been partnering with businesses, and you're seeing more and more schools across Long Island doing this, working with the industries to say, what are the workforce needs?
Right.
I'll give you an example. We're not too far from West Islip School System. They have an advanced manufacturing program in that school with the latest, greatest technology and machines, and they work closely with the manufacturing companies here in Long Island. And the kids that go through their programs come out with certifications, the skill sets, and sometimes jobs for some of the manufacturers right here in Long Island. And these are things that are going on in our high schools, right? Baldwin School District is another example. They have career academies where they go down into the middle schools and they start planting the seeds of different career opportunities, not just higher education, to see what kids may be interested in. And then they design career academy tracks in high school based on what the kid may want to do. Now, listen, we all know we change our mind 30 ways to Sunday, right? When I first, when I was a kid in high school, I thought I was going to be, the next Howard Stern and Don Imus. Well, I got a great face for radio, but that career never, that career never cut it. I'm sorry, it's a podcast. I apologize to your viewers, but
you're a handsome man. Come on.
Well, thank you. You also need an eye exam, apparently. But the point is, we have an idea of what we want to do, and then our career and our lives take us a different way.
Right.
So what schools are being...
I'm huge on that when I talk to the kids.
Right.
Not
and what schools have been doing now is saying, look, a student that's in kindergarten today, we have no idea what industries and what jobs are going to be there when they graduate.
Right.
Think about what artificial intelligence is doing to systems worldwide right now.
Right.
It's going to impact every industry. It is impacting industry. We can't predict what jobs are going to be out there 20 years from now. But what is the skill set that students need to be successful in a multitude of careers? Critical thinking. You have to be able to think critically, right? I don't care.
I really, and I'm huge on this. I love that these schools are doing CTE programs and we have the BOCES and everything else. But I'm so big on when I talk to superintendents and principals and teachers. Even after they take those programs, they're going to go to a company. They're going to start to learn from the bottom. And I think that's they're not really told that while they're learning this, but it's something that they should be told up front. Like, you're going to learn these skills and you're going to apply these skills to your job when you get your job.
Right.
But, it's...
not everybody's going to come out and be a millionaire social influencer on YouTube.
No. I mean, I wish we all could be. It would be nice.
Listen, let's reset the expectation, right? But let's give you the skill set to be successful, right?
Right.
Whether it's interpersonal skills, how to communicate,
easy stuff. That's what we should focus on.
Right. Yeah. How to work as a group to think of problem solving. Right. I'll give you another example.
Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. Like, these are all things.
I do that all the time.
You can't be good at everything.
Exactly. I'm not a smart guy, but I know how to pick smart people, right? And
Me too.
Learn from them. But another thing that schools have been doing, robotics. Right. Has been huge the last 20 years.
Sachem has a cool robotics.
Sachem. Yeah. Every school district on Long Island, now you hear about Lego robotics. Kids are doing robotics in elementary school.
Right.
And if you've never been to a robotics competition, I invite everybody to go to one of these, right? Yeah. There's a regional one that's held on Long Island every year.
They were showing me video that they have robots that hang from the rope. It's amazing.
It's amazing what these kids create. But more importantly, if you go to these competitions, because you design your robot, and they give you, okay, the robot needs to perform X, Y, and Z. That's what they give you. And they give you, here's the kits. You design the robot to perform X, Y, and Z. Then they get into these competitions, and you're competing against other districts to do X, Y, and Z. Right. And invariably, something goes wrong, something breaks, something doesn't work right. And you see these kids working together as teams, critically thinking about, here's our problem, what is our workaround solution on the fly,
Right.
redesigning, retooling, fixing, repairing, getting the machine back into the competition. It's an amazing thing to watch. And if you've never been to one, this is how I describe it. Picture Super Bowl, Big Bang Theory mixed together with a lot of sugar.
Right.
The energy is freaking crazy.
That's awesome.
But watching what these kids are doing at such a high level.
Yeah.
And so many schools take advantage. We have so many assets here on Long Island.
Yeah.
We are so spoiled. When it comes to robotics and engineering, we have Cold Spring Laboratories, right? Cold Spring Harbor Laboratories, Brookhaven National Lab. Brookhaven National Lab, I know they've partnered with school districts for robotics for decades, right? So now kids are working side by side with engineers,
Right.
real-time environment, latest, greatest stuff,
Right.
and they're getting exposed to what is needed in the workforce, right? Same thing with the medical. The medical industry on Long Island, like so many other areas of the country, is huge and it's taking off, right?
Yeah.
So schools have started medical assisting programs. The school district that I was a trustee for, we brought in CTE programs in on our own. We did automotive, culinary, medical assistant, carpentry. We have a whole business academy. And like I describe it, you know, a medical assistant is one of our biggest programs that's subscribed to. These kids are now being exposed to healthcare related industries, right? And many of them go on to become nurses or physician assistants. Wantagh now has a class where kids could become EMTs and get their certification before they even graduate to, again, expose them to the healthcare fields, the healthcare industry. And so many EMTs go on to become paramedics, physician assistants, or
Absolutely
ER
good
nurses.
background.
Huge
For your resume, yeah.
industry and hugely needed, right? You
How many volunteer fireman signs you see that needed help?
volunteer
All over the
ambulances,
place.
right?
Yeah, same
If
thing
your
for
loved
ambulance.
one's having a heart attack, you want a qualified health professional coming into your house and taking care of you.
Yeah.
These are all things that schools are exploring and changing gears and offering opportunities for the kids to be exposed to.
I love it. My only gripe with that is now from talking to kids who have graduated and my experiences and other people that are my age that have experienced it, and talking to even kids that are in high school now. We had a meeting at Farmingdale High School not too long ago. They have a great program over there as well. Is not every kid is exposed to these opportunities.
Right.
So my push is to how do we get every single kid that enters high school to be exposed to this, even if it's for one meeting or one auditorium lecture, to get exposed to this, to kind of plant the seed and then get them involved. I know it's going to be hard to get, because like most of these schools, how many kids can they fit in each of those programs? It's not a lot.
It's a question of resources.
So
Absolutely.
who's picking these kids? How are they getting in? Is it the guidance counselors?
Yeah.
Is it
It's not
other
even the
teachers?
schools picking the kids, it's the kids picking what their interest is.
I
right?
know. So when I talk to these kids, my worry and my concern is, like, I'll go talk to kids at BOCES and say there's 30 kids in a room.
Yep.
How many of you are actually going to pursue plumbing? How many of you are actually going to pursue automotive? And it's only like 1 or 2 out of the 30. But it's like, I know the school district pays $18,000 per kid to send them to the BOCES.
Depending on the BOCES program.
Depending
aviation
on,
is,
I know
is
that
more expensive.
Aviation's
than
like $45,000.
Yeah,
it's
it's an
big
expensive
money.
program.
Yeah. So now,
But how many people know that there's aviation programs available out there that kids could actually get their pilot license?
that's
or learn
where I
about the
want to
mechanics?
hit. We work. There's a guy over here. That I had a meeting with at BOCES when we did that panel meeting in in the
with
fall.
Skills USA,
Yeah,
and
which
stuff
was
like that.
which
Yeah.
was great. And that's where I want to hit. Like, how do we work together as a board?
Yep.
With superintendents, with guidance counselors, with teachers, and get every kid exposed to this, where they could say, you know what, I can get out of high school and I could, start working for a company that maybe will send me to not college, but a school to further my education in this technology, and then get that seed plant.
Yeah,
Like that's,
and I think you see a shift on Long Island, right? And
Yes.
I've cited some examples, and it's not system wide, but it is growing.
Oh, yeah.
And what I think is critically important, and it's gaining momentum, is when the state education department is changing its mindset to say, okay, if we have a kid that's on a career path track,
right.
do we need to make sure that they pass every Regents? Listen, Regents exams and everything else still has a value set. It's not going to go away.
They could also work for credits too, right?
They
Farmingdale
can
has
work
that
for credits.
program.
Exactly. So how do we make sure that we're building kids successfully? So the fact that the state is going to take some of the chains off of schools.
Right.
Right. So if we don't have all these requirements to make sure a kid gets a diploma, that may free up resources or free up opportunities, right? Because schools could do what they could do based in the confine of regulations, right? Schools, if had and still have a requirement to say to get a kid to get a diploma, A, B, C, and D have to be done.
Right.
It's not optional.
Right.
Right. If a kid is a really skilled carpenter, well, guess what? You still have to pass these Regents exams, and maybe you're not a good test taker, but holy cow, can you build a house?
Right.
So the state recognizes that, okay, while we're still going to have assessments to make sure schools are meeting the needs of the students from a curriculum-based program, maybe there's alternative pathways to say if you can demonstrate this and you get your certification, right? Schools that have the automotive programs, you walk out with your national certification, you could go work in a dealership.
Right.
Schools that have culinary programs are hooked up with Johnson & Wells. And,
right.
I was just speaking with Bridgehampton School District, right? Very tiny school district out on the East End. They have a Meta Quest collaboration program that they partner with New York Institute of Technology, and kids can earn 9 college credits before they leave. So if they want to make the leap to higher ed because of what they've been exposed to. So these conversations have been happening for a long time, and the fact that the state may take some of the restrictions off of schools, that's how you're going to see a greater expansion of this, right? Nassau BOCES, we, again, assets on Long Island that we don't tap into enough. Broadway is right in New York City, not far away.
Mm-hmm.
Nassau BOCES, we're very fortunate, has the only performing arts high school on Long Island and one of very few in New York State.
Right.
But they partner with Broadway.
Yeah.
Right? Now, everybody thinks Broadway, okay, acting, singing, dancing, that's part of it.
No, how does the stage get put together? Who makes
stage,
all the stuff?
lighting, boom mics.
See, these are the rabbit
set
holes
design.
that you and I go
Right,
down.
set
I wish
design.
everyone would think this
And
way.
kids that go into this program, they're going into, the set design
How
stuff.
did this cup get here?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, how many different hands did this cup?
The technicians to make sure that the sound and lights are working for the performance. It's a huge cottage industry.
Yes.
Well, not even a cottage. It's a huge industry with so many back-end things that people don't even think about, but schools are. And the BOCES programs are. And we're exposing our kids to that. And that's why I'm saying we're very spoiled as a region. But a lot of people don't know this. I know this because I've been a board member for 18 years. Right. My new job now is representing all these boards, and I know what's going on. We have a front row seat to it, and not enough people know it. They have preconceived notions of what's going on. Right. Where if they just talk to their boards or start attending board meetings, you'll hear what's going on.
That's
in
a
schools.
tough one because
everyone's
more
so
importantly,
busy
now,
right.
Like,
and more importantly,
tough.
you hear about the visions that the superintendents and the boards have about where they're taking their schools going forward. Mm-hmm. I'll give you another example. Put the politics.
Some superintendents, because I had a meeting with, I'm going to say not township, with a whole luncheon with all these superintendents a year ago in the fall, and I told them what we were doing. Not one followed up with me. Yeah. And I believe that it's hard to get people who have a set salary and they're not going to get paid. I'm not saying that they're bad people, but if you're not incentivized financially to do more, most people are going to opt to not do more. And making this change is going to require more work. So that's what we have. How do we sell that to our superintendents, our principals, our teachers? That this is going to require a change. It's going to require to do a little more thinking and work. You're going to get paid the same, but this is better for our future and our next generation.
Yeah, and again, getting back to some of the restrictions, some of the resources, right?
Right.
So we're in the middle of a budget season right now, where the governor, her proposal was to remove a provision called Save Harmless, right?
And
so now
that?
So Save Harmless says, okay, no school district is going to receive less state aid than they did the year before, but that provision was put in long ago. We could do a whole nother show about school finance and funding and how
I would love that actually, because
and I would invite you to do it because I have no problem talking about that. Yeah. But by her removing this technical provision from the funding formula without getting too far in the weeds, if that provision is approved by the state legislature, and I don't think it will be, but superintendents right now have been staring at their state aid figures if the governor's proposal goes through. And more than half the schools on Long Island would actually lose aid. And Long Island wide, it's $43 million.
From one cancel.
From one change that the governor made in the budget proposal. $43 million in state aid.
Now, is it made or it's on the ballot to be changed?
It's not it's not finalized yet. The state will go through, the legislature will go through and negotiate with the governor what their final budget is.
Right.
And hopefully it doesn't happen. But when you're looking at resources, if you're a superintendent to say, you know what, 3-village school district.
Right.
If the governor's proposal goes through, they're going to lose $8 million. One school district losing $8 million. Now, some people might sit there and say, "Oh, it's 3-village." You know,
people who live in 3-village right now saying, "Holy shit,
100%,
$8 million."
And I don't care if you're a wealthy community or a moderate income community or a high needs community. How do you withstand an $8 million cut?
And they're going to want to raise taxes, and then everyone's going to fight to not get the taxes.
Now, how are you resource wise? You know what, Ryan? I love what you're talking about. It's going to take for me to hire a certified career tech ed teacher.
Right.
Which is another problem. There's not enough certified tech ed teachers out there.
But now I'm not technically suggesting because we're not what we're proposing isn't for a class to learn any skill.
Right.
Physically, you know, where the skills that we want to teach them are outside the box thinking, problem solving, stuff like that. What opportunities there? So I think that would just require like a business teacher, because that was my.
But in New York State, you have to be certified,
right?
And your program,
right?
If you want to bring in, let's say, you want to bring in an electrical program, the curriculum has to be approved by the state.
Well, not. I get what you're saying.
But
it's not,
giving kids exposure, let's say job shadowing opportunities. There's ways to give kids the exposure, right? I'm not a big fan of the one-off assemblies, right? Because I used to sleep through most of my assemblies as a kid, right?
Yeah.
You have to really put it into your school culture that 100%. This is an opportunity. This is a worthy path to
Rich
take.
Schaefer called it that. He said, we are asking for a culture change.
And that's what's happening right now. There is a culture change, right? Because for so many years, you were measured based on how many kids went to 2-year and 4-year schools. People would brag, my kid got admitted to this Ivy League college and this and that.
Right.
All worthy stuff for a segment of students. But in my district, we celebrate kids that are enlisting into the military with an annual event.
As you should.
As you should. Because they're a special, like I said earlier, they're a special part of the 1% that is choosing to serve their nation. And guess what? Their career path, they may never come home. And that's how our event was created, because we had a kid who never came home. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? We never thanked that kid when they graduated, saying thank you for the choice that you're about to make, right? Yeah. So fast forward, now this event is created. And it's, breaking down some of the stigma that, okay, if you're a parent, it's okay to say, my kid is joining the Marines. My kid is joining the Army. Some people still have a stigma with that, politics aside. But here's another example of why we need to have our ear to the ground for innovation going forward. Long Island's always been a hub of innovation with manufacturing, Grumman, space exploration. Yeah. Now, politics aside, 3 years ago, I was at a meeting with the LIA and we heard about offshore wind.
Right.
Whole new industry coming to this region.
Who's building that?
Who's building it? Who's maintaining it? Who's going to be working for the companies that are going to be behind operating these things?
Well, the problem now is, as a business owner standpoint, and when you talk to other business owners, the cost of building these things has gone up sheerly on the fact of, instead of sending one guy to do the job, you now have to send two.
Right. Because
supply and demand.
Right. And there's a whole supply chain that supports businesses as well.
And
but the point is, how do we expose our students in the K through 12 system to say, hey, look, here's this new industry that's coming.
Right.
This may be another career path, right? I remember being at one of the meetings, and one of the industries that was there was the tugboat industry.
Right.
Because who's trucking the stuff out to the wind farms, several miles off? So there's so many opportunities, and you got to be plugged into that.
Right.
Again, it gets back to the culture shift. If you're not thinking in terms of, wow, here's a huge new industry. How often are we in an area where a new industry is coming?
Right.
And now what are the workforce needs, right? So Suffolk County Community College, they have a whole program to certify people and get certificates.
Right.
Farmingdale State College, same thing. But they're also partnering up with the K through 12 system. So these are the things that are happening every day, not on a grand scale.
Are those programs designed just to teach them what they need to know? They got to take these baloney classes?
No, they're high end.
It's strictly like it's CTE. Like, this is what you're going to learn. This is what these classes are going to teach you, what you need to know to build these windmills.
Right. If you want to be involved with the manufacturing of the windmills, you need to be having the skill set to operate the machines that are making these blades or whatever. Or how about the maintenance of these machines? Right. There's a whole host of things from a maintenance standpoint and ongoing. You know, these companies that are coming in, they all have human resource needs. They all have payroll needs. They all have accounting needs. all these things are all interwoven. You know,
every blue collar industry has to have an accountant, has to have sales.
Somebody's got to get paid every week,
has
every
to have
2 weeks,
engineers,
right?
architects. I mean, these are all things that intertwine.
Yeah, still got to file taxes every year, right?
Yep.
You know, way too much,
Yep.
and we'd rather not. But these
I agree.
This is the mindset that's going on in public education, K through 12.
Right.
Saying, look, there are opportunities for our kids. What are the skill sets? Not necessarily training for the job.
Right.
What are the skill sets to be successful in these different industries? And again, getting back to Baldwin School District and Mineola School District and Farming, so many of these schools and a lot of these superintendents realize we can't be predictors of the job industries that are going to be out there. So
Right.
we're not going to listen. The public school system in its current state for the vast majority of school systems hasn't changed in design since the 1900s. The public school system was designed for the industrial age.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here's a great book to read. Schools Cannot Do It Alone by Jamie Vollmer.
Okay.
Excellent book. And he was a business guy.
Right.
And if schools were run like a business, we'd all be better off, blah, blah, blah. And as he immersed himself more into it, he realized that the design and the systems of schools is almost set up to failure with today's age. And this book is over 20 years old too.
Yeah.
He was really forward thinking. He's no longer alive, but it's a great read. But one thing, there's a chapter in there. It's called The Blueberry Story, and I'll just paraphrase it really quick. He was in front of a large audience of educators,
Right.
and he had a reputation of going in saying, you know, you guys are doing it all wrong. If you ran it like a business, and I run a very efficient business. He ran an ice cream business that was nationally known, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
He goes, you'd all be better off. So a teacher stood up and said, Mr. Vollmer, I eat your ice cream. You have some of the best ice cream in the country. She goes, talk to me about, you know, the ingredients. Do you get the finest ingredients? Oh, yeah, nothing but the best, you know. Okay, you get the blueberries. They come in. Do you sort through the blueberries and you get rid of the bad ones and you keep the
I know
nothing but the best,
Yeah.
right? And the lady's like, you sort and you pick nothing but the best.
That doesn't happen as
Public education, we educate all the students.
Yeah.
And we meet them where they're at and we try to grow them so they're successful.
And now what I think is a huge mistake is the teachers are judged by how the kids do.
Right.
And that's a slippery slope because you may have kids that are incapable of passing a certain test that they're supposed to pass.
Right. It's not
You
just
could
about
have
a
the best
test
teacher in the world. My wife's a teacher. She goes through this, and she worries about this stuff. Like she wants all her
Yeah.
kids, and she's in the K through 5 level
Right.
with reading.
Right.
But,
And the
you know,
current evaluation in New York State was created by the state legislature, not necessarily from the ground up from educators in the field saying, we know how to evaluate our staff. We know what needs to be done from a professional development, right?
Right.
Because the teachers, they have to be the best of the best too, right?
Right.
And
You would
like,
hope, but accountability nowadays is shit.
you know,
Yeah.
but in any system, you have the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between.
Right.
And I can tell you with a great amount of certainty, been involved over 20 years now, the overwhelming majority in our region, the overwhelming majority of educators and educational leaders are really, really good, as evidenced by some of the best
Prideful.
systems.
Yep.
But listen,
You're gonna have your
every
bad
system,
seeds.
you have your bad apples, right?
Yep.
And you have some really bad characters as well. So any system is gonna have that. But overwhelmingly, there's great opportunities, and I think from a future look, a forward look, we're heading into a really good space with them, the state, looking at what graduation measures should be
Right.
to allow greater innovation for workforce opportunities and exposing kids to, like to your point earlier,
Right.
how do we plant the seed? How do we give them exposure? So this is the culture in every school district and not just some
You
of them
definitely
across
have to
the
get
region.
the parents on board and
And
the
that-
teachers.
100%.
So real quick, I don't want to cut you off. My partner in the glass business, he's younger than me. We partner with another company to, we do commercial glazing, storefront, curtain wall, stuff like that. So he told me a quick story last week, and his story resonates with me because he graduated. I'm not going to say the district that he graduated from. 2 years later, his father owns the glass business. So he went in to change the glass on where they hold the trophies and stuff. And his old teacher came up to him and, oh, hey, Anthony, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And he looks at him, he goes, so this is what you're doing? And I says, yeah, And now he didn't tell him he worked for his father or anything. And he goes, I really expected better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a shitty mindset that needs to change. If we have people
And that's
like
a legacy mindset.
100%. If people like that are teaching our kids, then they don't belong teaching our kids. Their attitude's got to change. I mean, granted, I respect and appreciate all the teachers, but that's not always the best career path for everybody. And for someone to say that to a kid, that's wrong.
Yep.
But that's, I feel, in this public school district, I think there's unfortunately a decent amount of those types of teachers that need to.
Yeah, because teachers that have been in the system for a long time, it was drilled into them: get your kids prepared, let them score on the ACT, SAT, so they go on to higher education.
Right.
Because that was the system for how many years, right?
Right.
But there is a shift. There's a shift underway.
I'm
and
glad that you're saying that. Yep.
And you could see it with the right. It starts at the top.
Yeah.
You could see it with the leadership. Boards of education are having these conversations. Again, I said to you in the very beginning, boards are voted in by their communities. They bring the community's value set to the table.
Right.
Right. I'll give you another example. It's not really career oriented, right? We hear about the mental health crisis and we hear about the drug crisis that's going on.
Right.
This is nothing new, right? People attribute this to the pandemic. I got news for you. The mental health crisis that we're seeing, particularly among our students, was a growing problem going as far back. We recognize it in 2012, 2013. It really got on our radar.
Right.
I will tell you.
Heroin was the conversation in that and back then.
Right.
No one ever heard of it.
And I spent 32 years in the drug and alcohol business, so it's something that's near and dear to me.
Yeah.
So heroin and fentanyl is the big deal now. Used to be crack. It was cocaine. Drug of choice changes. The addiction issues stay the same.
Right.
My point being is, back in 2006, I was on the Board of Education, and we had a treatment facility come to us and say, hey, look, we're treating some of your kids that have substance use issues. The problem is they can't get to our location in Huntington. My school district was located in Mastic Beach. Would you pay for transportation to go there? We can't do that by law.
Right.
But what I can do is rent you space in my high school.
Right.
And have your clinic here.
Okay.
Right?
Right. Problem solving.
People
can't do that.
Now, let me tell you something.
Outside the box thinking.
This is 2006.
Right.
Long before heroin was the headlines, long before fentanyl was the headlines, and heroin wasn't the main issue. We opened up a clinic in our high school. I just thought it was a common sense thing. Little did I know it was the only one in New York State at the time.
Right.
We had pushback from some community members who didn't want those kids with my kids.
Well, those kids could be your kids. That's what people.
And I was like,
realize.
you don't want kids that are clean and sober with your kids? I'm confused.
Right.
That was my response. And every school district has a percentage of kids that are suffering from substance use disorders.
And some come from the best families, too. You can't figure it out.
Addiction doesn't discriminate.
Nope.
It's one of the few. Addiction and mental health does not discriminate. Probably one of the only things in this world that truly doesn't discriminate. Doesn't matter if you come from a broken home, stable home, wealthy, poor, color of your skin, religious background. Doesn't matter, right? But the problems have increased.
Yeah.
Dramatically, they've increased. They've definitely increased, and statistically, and the data will show, the mental health issues have definitely paralleled with the increase in exposure to social media. It's not the be-all, end-all, right?
Right.
But schools have been dealing with this, and the culture and the mind shift is we have to do something about it.
Right.
So now schools are starting to partner with outside community-based provider organizations to deal with the crisis that's at hand.
Right.
But this has been conversations that have been going on for a long time. Again, back in 2007, we addressed it. That clinic, instead of just dealing with substance use issues, is now in place, and they're dealing with substance use, they're dealing with mental health issues, they're dealing with family issues, and it's grown to a complete dynamic. But how forward-thinking that was, just based on a conversation with a board that had a value set to say, yeah, we need to do something, and wasn't afraid to do it.
Right.
And I had other colleague, friends of mine, boards of education from other communities say, God bless you, we could never do that here because the community doesn't want to acknowledge the stigma, right? So we're trying to break down the barriers of stigma with mental health and getting treatment and recognizing issues with mental health. So again, getting back to culture shifts.
Well, I think this culture shift will help the mental health because now you're going to have kids that don't feel like they got to be a square peg in a round hole.
Absolutely.
Now they can say, you know what, I have a different path I can go, and they'll be happy to do it and will excel at that path.
Right.
And they'll have guys like you and me and different people to help them along the way.
And this is what I would say to folks, go to your board meetings, talk to your Board of Education members.
Right.
They can tell you what's going on in schools. Right. Again, it's you're not going to see it in Newsday, right? Because these type of stories, people aren't going to click on them.
Yeah.
Because they're not
Or
sexy,
Channel
they're
12.
not
I
fun.
kind of have a bone to pick.
Or News 12, right?
Yeah.
They've got a certain bandwidth of getting the news. I get it.
Right.
But you know what? Immerse yourself, go to meetings, ask questions, learn what's going on. If you're a parent, talk to your student's guidance counselor.
Right.
Particularly at a secondary level, your guidance counselor is your best friend to help you as a parent guide your child on the path that they want to take, right? Because even if it is higher education, it's a whole minefield of how you navigate that.
See, that's not to say you're wrong, but higher education needs to be understood as higher education. So whether it's higher education on going to college or higher education as going to do mechanic school to be an
100%.
A mechanic working on Honda, vehicles. That's either way you're hiring. So that's the stigma we want to change it. No matter what, you're hiring your education. The doctor that works on my body can't fix the boiler.
Right.
The doctor that works on our body can't fix his car.
Right.
So either way, we're all hiring our education. So that stigma's got to change to
100%.
all our kids need to hire their education in every aspect.
Some form.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
An apprentice program with a union is
100%.
Higher education.
Yeah. Well,
so that you become a master journeyman,
we got
right?
those guys with us too.
100%. I grew up in a
amazing.
union household. My dad was a union tin knocker.
Yeah.
That's how it put a roof over our head, food on the plate, and clothes on our back. My brother, I have several members of my family that were in the trades and very, very successful.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And again, that's breaking down the stick, and that gets back to the culture shift. But as a parent, right, because some of this gets back to the conversations around the kitchen table.
100%.
Put down the devices.
Yep.
Have a conversation.
Yes.
I'm old school.
Yeah.
Right? I would always have conversation with my kids. My kids now are 30 and 28. I still have these conversations with my children.
Well, it's a constant worry when you have kids, right?
Parenting never ends. It
Yeah.
gets more expensive as they get older.
You worry from the minute you find out you're having a kid.
Right? You think it's
forever.
expensive to have a high school senior between prom and class rings and yearbooks and everything else.
Yeah.
Wait until the weddings and the grandkids come.
Yeah.
It gets a lot more expensive. So continue to work.
Well, you're a good father for being able to help them.
Thanks.
Yes.
But here's my point. Have those conversations around the dinner table, and as a parent, have the conversations with the guidance counselor. Say, look, this is what my kids' goals are. This is what they, gaming. Gaming is a whole nother industry out there.
You wouldn't think, but yeah, big time.
Designing these games.
Yeah.
Huge industry out there. There may be opportunities in your schools, in business academies, in other cost offerings that you may not even be aware of. And that's my point.
Right.
Talk to your schools. Talk to your schools about how do I get my kid into the Long Island School of the Arts in Nassau BOCES, because they have a real acumen. They want to do sound engineer. Multimedia programs.
Yeah.
Bridgehampton, they have a multimedia program in addition to this MetaQuest collaboration with NYIT.
Is there some sort of site that you have where parents can go to and see?
I would go
this
to
is
your
what school
individual
districts-
school. Go to your
Right.
individual school district sites.
Okay.
And then if you're an advocate and your school doesn't have something that you think they should have, learn about who has it, how it was done, bring it to your school and say,
Can we do this?
Baldwin is doing something really innovative. Have you guys thought about doing this? Because there's an age-old expression in public education. Nobody wants to be first, but if it's successful, everybody wants to be second.
Yeah, exactly.
So
100%.
So it's
This
the
is a great idea.
leaders.
Let's do
It's the
before someone
leaders,
else
right?
does.
It's the
Yeah.
leaders who are bold enough to be first.
Yeah.
And then if it's successful, schools will jump all over it.
Absolutely.
And we see that every day
Yeah.
with so many different things. So talk to your school boards. As parents, you should be having conversations. You should know who the kid's guidance counselor is and having conversations with them so that you can be an informed consumer on the career path to help support your child, no matter what that may be. Getting back to my 3 E's.
Yeah.
Ready to enroll in higher ed, whatever higher ed is, employed into the trades or be an entrepreneur, right? You may be a very skilled chef, take the culinary program. And I use this analogy all the time too. At Floyd, we had the culinary program and then we had our business academy. And we would say to our kids, okay, if you want to learn about the back of the house, you better learn about the front of the house and how to keep the books so that while you're busy cooking in the back because you're a really skilled chef, you don't have somebody ripping you off with the books.
Exactly.
And we would marry the two. And that's been going on for a long time. And William Floyd's not unique. There's a lot of programs like that. Virtual enterprise, how to create online exposures and marketing and everything else.
And our job, from what we're doing, is we want to connect those kids from either high school when they're ready to graduate to a job.
Job opportunities, right?
So our website is basically we're looking to be like the Indeed, but for free.
Right.
of Long Island, where parents can go to our website, see the partnering companies that we have, and then like Winter Brothers just gave a great example of what we're going to do. We're going to have a box to click on each company, and then all the jobs that one company employs.
And I would throw out a challenge to you guys too. Not only just jobs. Think about job shadowing opportunities for students, and this takes a great amount of resources on the business's part, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm going to take this high school student, knowing that maybe they get out at 1 o'clock, and I'm going to structure a program that they could do some job shadowing in my industry.
Yeah.
That takes some resources and some investment on industry's part. And getting back to Baldwin, that's what they've done. They have a whole business advisory council, and their kids are getting
Farmingdale's starting it too.
Job shadowing opportunities.
And credit for those
Farmingdale.
jobs. Yep.
And credit for that for whatever class they're in. But more importantly, you hear about it, you get a taste of it. Now, getting back to the West Islip example, they do this. I can't tell you how many kids have been in their advanced manufacturing industry, have had job shadowing opportunities or internships, and then they go on to work for East West Industries or whatever, CPI, aeronautic, So that's where schools that are open to that, and more schools will get open to that as the chains come off, and allow us to create those. But industry sometimes, not a job after. Well, how about creating a program for the kid that gets out of high school at 1:30, and from 2 to 5 we have a job shadowing opportunity? Because number one, it's great recruitment potential for the employers, right? For kids that, now I want to go see it, and make it a meaningful, don't just, sweep up and blah, blah, blah. Meaningful for you, but that takes investment as well. So, Baldwin School District in particular, I know firsthand does that really, really well. And
I definitely encourage,
some of the stories are really cool.
I definitely encourage kids to work in any industry in the high school level, because I think any industry, whether you're waiting tables, bartending, you can't bartend at a certain age, bar backing, whatever, working at a grocery store, as long as you're interacting with adults and you're learning problem solving skills, thinking outside the box, how to handle yourself, how to show up on time, that's going to lead to a better employee who can move on to be a manager, entrepreneur himself, stuff like that.
Here's another thing schools are doing too, and you just made me think of it. Financial literacy.
Now, how many schools do it? Because I talk to so many people, and once again, it's another thing that not every parent and every student knows about. Like, that needs to
many schools are doing this, but again, New York State is probably going to make it a requirement, because the New York State Comptroller,
has to be.
Getting back to Tom DiNapoli, who was a school board member in Mineola at the age of 18, he is stressing to the state education department that financial literacy needs to be part of the mandated curriculum for kids to graduate with. Well, what does financial literacy mean? Doesn't mean accounting. It means how to manage finances, how to manage finances to avoid debt, things like that. So here's a great example of what just happened a couple of weeks ago. Hampton Bays School District partnered with Teachers Federal Credit Union. They opened a branch inside the high school, and the kids are going to be trained to operate the branch. The kids all got accounts opened because they had a foundation that gave every high school student $10 to open up an account.
Oh, wow.
So you could save for your class ring, you could save for your yearbook, you could save for the prom.
Right.
Now you're teaching them financial literacy skills for a real application. Like, prom is going to cost me $500. Let me start saving now in September. Boom, and I got
so they're going to make that class for everybody.
It's open to every kid in the high school.
But how is it mandatory?
It's not mandatory yet.
Can they? But what I'm asking you is, with your help, can we intertwine our message in that same class, and then maybe instead of a 3 day a week class to a 5 day a week class, even if it's a half a semester, hit all the heads, but now you're making every kid take that course.
Yeah. Well, I will make a prediction that financial literacy curriculum will be a mandate that comes down from New York State, so that every school will then be required to do that.
Right.
Which then means schools will have the resources to allocate towards that, because they're not required to do something else.
But now this is what we need. This is what Long Island needs, and that's
100%.
Huge.
Yep. So I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about the leadership that we have here in Nassau and Suffolk counties in particular, both on the business side and the public education side.
Awesome.
And I love where we're headed.
Right.
I can't wait to continue to have that front row seat to see how it evolves, see how it develops.